allow her to dish out the damage, and that's the type of smart play that you want to see from these top players.
Well, I want to start to talk about the draft in this one. Obviously, we've talked a lot over the last few days about SpaceStation's draft, how they really favored this Kestrel, this Black Feather. I want to talk a little bit about G2 because this is a team that has really embraced this meta and now has multitude of playstyles that they can lean on.
Yeah, and that was always one of the big criticisms of G2 was their limited playstyles. The fact that they were only heavily successful when they were playing Protect the Hundor type of compositions, but now they can do a lot more. Dark Potato has really stepped up this season, especially in terms of being able to play more versatile play styles and have that much deeper hero pool.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what G2 is going to come in prepared with versus the Black Feather that they gave over to SpaceStation. You would expect that SpaceStation picks that up since Sneaky plays it so well. So first pick, Black Feather, very flexible. I want to see what G2 has prepared for it.
It's going to be interesting to see how they play around this pick because Black Feather, it seems like it's a pick that most teams are actually quite happy to let through the bans at this point. We see Black Feather in most games, but it's still a very difficult pick to play around as the opponent.
Yeah, it really is a difficult pick to play around. What would be very smart here from G2 is to pick up a jungler and leave the carry last so that they have the potential to pick the Rona against the Black Feather and not be countered. If they pick up the Rona here, SpaceStation could put the Black Feather in the jungle and play something like a Vox.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Well, they're going to go for the Batiste. I was going to say, I wouldn't mind seeing something like a Petal, something that could also be flexed and does work really well, you know, with that melee, into the melee compositions that we've seen a lot of teams start running with this Black Feather. But with the Batiste now, this kind of is, I think it feels like a squeeze onto SpaceStation trying to say, okay, you know, if you wanted something like a Samuel to go with this, now all of a sudden Samuel is a lot less appealing going into a Batiste. It also just denies a potential Catherine Batiste combo, although I don't think that necessarily would have been a focus with Arden still available. I feel like SpaceStation may go for either the Arden or the Lance for Clast and try and just have that big bruiser type of front line.
Yeah, I'd quite like to see something range come out from SpaceStation as well, going up against that Batiste. You don't. Batiste is such a good pick when you're going into a full melee composition.
Indeed, but not if it's Alpha. Alpha can outduel Batiste fairly easily throughout the mid game after she picks up her Aftershock just because of how tanky she is. SpaceStation will have to decide here. They still have to worry about the Rona last pick that I talked about. Since G2 did pick their jungler and left their carry as a last pick, they have the potential to counter the entire composition of SpaceStation.
We'll see how SpaceStation are going to round this one out. They've got the Arden, they've got the Black Feather, certainly very strong picks in the current meta, but still need to decide where they want that Black Feather to go. The Saw is going to be locked in. This is something that's been creeping on into the meta and has had some phenomenal games recently.
Yeah, the teams that have been really focusing on playing the Saw have had great performances with it. I'm curious because this is one of those teams where there's a chance, a small chance, that the Saw goes into the jungle. I don't think it's going to happen here, but you have to keep that possibility in mind if you are G2.
At the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if G2 picked up Celeste here and played double CP. It's something they've done in the past quite often, and Celeste just works against Saw so incredibly well. If it's not the Saw, it could be a Baron just because you have range, but it would be very hard to survive against him in the early game. So Celeste, it is going to be double CP against the Saw. It should work because Celeste can hold off against him with the wave clear, and then once she gets to level 8, she has a much longer range.
The difficulty that I could foresee here, though, is Black Feather can destroy a Celeste in the late game. Going back even last update, that was the hard counter to a Celeste. Celeste was getting played all the time. Black Feather started getting picked up to counter the Celeste and was beating Celeste every single game.
Indeed. If it is a jungle Black Feather, however, that's not going to be the case just because he doesn't get as much items, he doesn't get as much gold. In my opinion, what would be very smart for SpaceStation is to play CP, Saw with the weapon power Black Feather, and then you have a very strong composition against Celeste because you put down the suppression fire, Black Feather goes in, and you eliminate the Celeste. I know you're chuckling because whenever I talk about the CP Saw, no one does it.
The CP Saw is really really strong. Like, I don't think people are giving enough credit to how strong CP Saw is on this update.
I mean, I don't disagree with you guys. I just find it amusing that we always have this conversation. Never seems to happen. I'm hoping it will also be the case coming on into this one. How are we feeling this early game is going to go? Because, you know, Saw, whether CP or weapon power, can put a lot of pressure on the game.
It's tough to really predict how it's going to go, because if there is a weapon power versus crystal power, and the same with the Black Feather, that's going to drastically change how this early game is going to be shaping up.
Yeah, for sure. At the same time, though, Celeste and Batiste should be able to hold off the early game, especially since they have a Lyra on their side as well, the sustain coming out. They should be able to hold off in the early game no matter who they go up against in terms of items decision, weapon power, or CP. So G2, in my opinion, coming out with the better draft, but they still have to execute.
I have to ask, once we get towards the later stages of this game, will the double CP be a concern? Or I don't have time to ask you that question. We are going to be jumping on into this game. Let us know who you think is going to be able to take this one. Is the Celeste going to be enough to take out the Saw? Let us know on Twitter, #Vainglory8. It's time to jump into our second semi-final. It's SpaceStation Gaming versus G2. Let's jump into it.
We are going to jump straight on into the action. I'm Medic. I'm joined by Denominator to bring us the games today. SpaceStation Gaming on the blue to start us off. G2 looking for that win, looking to close the gap with SK and maybe take them out in the finals on the red side. It's a Jungle Baptiste, it appears, to start us off here for G2. And Denominator, I'm sure you have many things to say about this draft.
I definitely do. So it's going to be interesting to see what the side of SpaceStation Gaming does decide to go with their builds. Right now, it is looking like double weapon power. And while the weapon power Saw is a really good pushing tool, and the weapon power Black Feather is very good at taking down a Celeste, Hundor is a very renowned and known Celeste. And into the Saw, that is a huge counter. The zoning potential coming out of a Celeste makes it so difficult for Sneaky to actually be able to get any damage down in the fights. So those are going to be things that we have to look out for here, is are they both going to commit to weapon power, and will Hundor be able to keep Sneaky back? I think with only a weapon blade and a book of eulogies, it is very possible that Sneaky could be going that crystal Saw, but historically when we've seen him play this pick, it has been on the weapon power just to get that raw amount of push, and that's so difficult to do against Hundor on this Celeste.
Hundor, as you say, incredibly well known for this Celeste. Baron, one of his power picks as well. We saw that in the last series. Sneaky, already up to that level 3 mark, can spin up on this Saw. Always looking for those early turrets, and you hear this sort of traditional story about Saw that if you haven't taken a turret by the 3 to 5 minute mark, really you're going to start struggling. Do you feel that's the case in this game, or do you think that SpaceStation Gaming still have enough power later on to actually deal with G2?
Well, that's the key thing. Is
it's CP. It's CP Saw.
And this is smart. This is incredibly smart, because
Iraqi's is just like cheering like a little child on the desk.
He's like, absolutely know it. He's smiling ear to ear right now. This is the smartest route for them to go, specifically because once Sneaky is spun up, he cannot get out of the damage range of Hundor. The question here is, are we going to see it be a effective CP Saw? We've seen, or at least in the off-stream game on this, last week we saw Sneaky play the weapon Saw, and they dominated. I mean, they absolutely destroyed with the Saw. But CP Saw is played very differently. The CP Saw is almost more of a assassin-style play, because it's going to rely on the Joker getting a target low and then Sneaky coming in for the execute. Now, there are a couple things he's going to have to watch out for if that's the case. Obviously, the Bright Bulwark can slow him up, or prevent him from using the Dank Shank, the Roadie Run. And obviously we'll have to look out for the Core Collapse as well, and obviously the Ordained for the kind of final thing here. And then even on top of that, that Fearsome Shade can force him out of his spin up as well. So there's a lot of potential that G2 have into this CP Saw. But again, if Hundor gets down to half health, if the Joker is able to come in and get him around half, Sneaky can just execute him at that point. I mean, it's no questions asked. It's half health done. And it's going to be interesting to see what actual build route he goes, For a long time, we saw the aftershock for that large initial burst on the first shank, or we could just go raw into the CP and allow the suppressing fire to do a massive amount of damage as well.
Intensified.
There's so many different options, so many different opportunities for SpaceStation Gaming. They are out of the running for Worlds now, of course, but they can play spoiler to G2 here. If they take the win off them, it becomes a lot harder for G2 to secure that #1 seed with SK already in the finals. Very even early on, a little bit of a gold lead for G2, and a lot of that coming from the fact that Hundo is able to farm very effectively in this lane. Has got a Shatterglass first item as well. Keanu not quite at the Fountain of Renewal yet, but nor is classed. So neither roam actually with that big team fight ability yet. If G2 are able to find and engage, they now have the ultimate coming out from the Batiste. The Fearsome Shade is available. It does seem very difficult for Sneaky to actually assassinate, to roadie run in and get that shank off into the back of one of the G2 members, just because of how much protection there is for this backline of G2.
Yeah, it definitely is going to be difficult for him to do so. Again, there's so many utility skills that the side of G2 has that can prevent him from doing so. But even though that's the case, the suppressing fire will also do a massive amount of damage as well as provide a slow. He has gone the aftershock first, so he is going for that initial roadie run into a suppressing fire build. What that's going to do is it's going to take a big chunk out of somebody's health to start, and then the suppressing fire, if landing on them for a full duration, definitely can shut them down. And it is G2 now going the double crystal route, obviously, with the Batiste and the Celeste. They do have a lot of damage that can poke this Saw out while he's using that suppressing fire. So we're going to have to rely on the Joker getting onto Hundor and shutting him down. Otherwise, even as a CP Saw, Sneaky is just going to be left for G2 to mangle.
That is the difficulty, really, for them. If Joker isn't able to be that effective on this Black Feather, then they will really struggle to actually get onto that backline and do the damage that they need to do. No real damage onto this turret either in the lane yet, because Hundo on the Celeste is able just to clear out the wave. Keanu doing a good job of keeping it around for Hundo, and those Supernovas will take it down very quickly. Hundo already on his way towards that second item as well, has 1,500 gold just sitting in his back pocket. Only 6 minutes in, we're looking at a 2 items Celeste, basically, and Celeste is one of these carries that scales so well into the later game as well, especially when you get the overdrive on that Heliogenesis. You can just poke from such long range and really harass down your opponents.
Yeah, you definitely can, and you know, that's, even though it's a CP Saw, that's the real downfall, is those supernovas are going to be so incredibly easy to land onto Sneaky. He's really going to have to try to be as mobile as he can. He's going to want to get in and out of these fights with the roadie run so that he can maximize his damage output while also reducing the amount of damage that Hundor is able to barrage in. The Eve of Harvest is now complete for Sneaky. This is going to give him some additional sustain when he is low on health. We'll see those roadie runs come out, and the healing paired between the Aftershock and the Eve of Harvest, we could very well see Sneaky go from half health back up to a very healthy 75 to 80% with just one shank.
I think we need an echo in this game as well. Just double shank them, you know, Sneaky. He wouldn't be effective at all, but I would laugh so much if I saw him roadie running in, shanking someone and echoing it, and then roadie running right back into the midst of the team.
Well, one of the neat things is the suppressing fire actually will reset the cooldown of your roadie run. So that's what I was talking about when the Aftershock comes out. You can go in with an Aftershock, you can get that proc in, and then drop your suppressing fire. That's going to force somebody back because they're going to be taking so much damage, and then the Aftershock can come through there. But it's Dark Potato finding massive amounts of damage right now.
The Joker doing a lot of work on that backline as well. Suppressing fire doesn't quite connect onto Dark Potato. He's chucking out those bad mojos, and both teams able to disengage. Both fountains used by the roamers here as well. Good on point from the Joker. He jumps into Dark Potato but can't quite get the kill. That is a sliver of HP for Dark Potato, under 100 HP, but managing to survive. And now Sneaky and Class will just have to back away. You can already see those supernovas shredding through Sneaky health bar.
Yeah, they absolutely are. Again, Saw so immobile that it makes it an easy counter for Hundor here on this Celeste. Even just the zoning, that even if he's not landing the Helios, he can force Sneaky back, and that's going to separate the Joker and Sneaky quite frequently. And that's where G2 is going to be able to find their capitalization and find a way that they can push for an advantage, as well as the objective damage coming out of Hundor is going to be pretty sizable as well. He already has the Clockwork second item, so these Helios are going to get spammed out every single second, and it's going to make it easy for him to keep the wave pushed. It's going to make him an easy target for the Joker, though, as he's obviously going to want to get on. They don't care about Dark Potato. His damage is pretty negligible in this game, but Hundor is a crazy damage threat.
Here's landing all of those Helios consistently on towards that backline, on towards Sneaky, and the turret yet to take too much damage, but now that Hunt has that overdrive on the A ability, he can just shred through it incredibly quickly. Sneaky takes 608 damage to the face. Hundor with one more supernova will be able to take down that turret, and Joker goes for the engage. Rose offensives across the side, but doesn't really get any damage down that he wants. With only a Sorrow Blade, he's not really able to stack up in these fights either. We need to see SpaceStation Gaming heal up before they can re-engage, but against the Lyra of G2, they really can't take these prolonged skirmishes at all.
No, they definitely can't. This game is literally going to come down to Class and the Joker making the plays, trying to get a good gauntlet down where they can isolate Hundor and get the damage down that way, because Sneaky is just not having any impact on these fights realistically. And, you know, now that G2 have that first turret down and they're starting to take an advantage, it does make it a little bit easier for G2 now, because Saw has to come so far up to farm his wave. Hundor can clear the wave out fast, or he can hold it and try to cause Sneaky to miss a minion here and there. And then once he holds the wave and lets a second one of his own wave comes up, he can clear out the enemy's minions incredibly quickly, and then they can rotate down and take something like the gold mine while a Crystal Saw is up in the lane trying to deal with a double mini wave.
And this is the sort of performance we expected from G2. You know, it's confident, it's calm, it's measured. They've got great poise as they approach the mid game here as well. They've got a 2,000 gold lead coming up to that 11-minute mark. And this is what you want to see if you're challenging for that world spot. You need to be consistent. You need to be strong, even against teams that have had good runs recently. You know, SpaceStation Gaming, as Salty Potatoes last week, did a great performance and now looked pretty strong yesterday as well. But could be the gold mine going over to G2. The gauntlet does come out. The Joker takes an absolute chunk of damage. The Fountain used the block on it towards that stun. Dark Potato in that front line. Double stun on the back line as the core collapse comes down. And now Hundor, even though he's low on energy, can just rain down hell upon the SpaceStation Gaming lineup. They went in for the gold mine, but they lose it anyway. And G2 get the immense gold payout 12 minutes into this game.
G2 looking pretty commanding in the lead at this point. There's not going to be much that SpaceStation Gaming can do. The Joker needs to get much further in his build before he's able to have the impact on the Celeste. You know, we were talking about that weapon Blackfeather being one of the biggest counters to a Celeste. But as Iraqi Zoro mentioned, it is a jungle Blackfeather. He is not going to get the same gold as he needs to try to kill the Celeste, as well as Blackfeather as a weapon power hero is not somebody that capitalizes off of level advantage. So he doesn't really gain any benefit of being in the jungle. I'd almost like to see Class sacrifice some of his ambient gold and allow the Joker to get the ambient gold here out of the lane.
Would make a lot of sense, but G2 are pushing forward for this next turret. Hundor doesn't even really need a wave here, can just rain down the pain from the skies, from the stars. Already chunks out that turret quite a lot, down to half, and another couple of Helios will take it out. It's another turret going over to G2, and SpaceStation Gaming just don't seem to have an answer. 4,000 gold behind at the 13-minute mark, and it's looking like it might be a pretty quick game here for G2 as they've got 3 items completed on towards Hunter, building up to that 4th. Dark Potato is sitting on 2 completed CP items as well, and Keanu has basically the full set for a roam with the Fountain Crucible and the Atlas Pauldron.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with all of that. I mean, G2 is just ahead in every single aspect right now. Dark Potato, Shatterglass, Clockwork Complete, working into a broken myth of his own. Hundor, 4 offensive items, obviously able to push just about anything down that they need him to. And Keanu Nakoa, I mean, shy of a War Treads, is basically almost at full build. They might look for, you know, possibly going into an Echo on this Lyra for the final item, or maybe even a Null Wave Gauntlet just to really get the advantage. But the Joker right now, with just a Sorrow Blade, does not have the damage to contest Hundor, while Sneaky has 2, almost 3 damage items online. But because of the severe trade-off with the Saw into the Celeste, he's not actually able to get any solid damage down with the items he has built.
Gauntlet comes in once again, the suppressing fire used as Joker jumps onto the backline. Hundor somehow still alive, eventually gets taken out by the Dank Shank, and that's what Sneaky can do if he gets in with that roadie run. SpaceStation Gaming able to get their first kill of the game, and it's on to that Celeste. It's the target that they need to isolate.
Yeah, it definitely is, and now SpaceStation Gaming are going to go ahead and take the opportunity to start up the gold mine. Sneaky on this Crystal Saw does not have, I mean, almost any pushing power in the lane. As we see, it takes him, I mean, all of his abilities just to clean out the minions. And now this gold mine should ideally get, you know, secured uncontested. Lyra's on their way, but not even going to make it in time. So finally, for the first time in this game, SpaceStation Gaming have found something for themselves off the kill of a Hundor there, who has now actually even thrown out the Solar Storm. It did miss the steal, and that's going to be a 20-second cooldown on that ability now. He does have 3 points put into it and the Clockwork, so not the most detrimental loss to the team, but you definitely want to make sure if a fight breaks out, you have that ability ready to go.
That you do. Once again, G2 trying to set up vision control around this Baron. They do have the flares that they can pop out. Contraptions finished on Keanu as well, so he can lay down some scout traps if he wishes. Dark Potato is the one to step forward. Class gets stunned up with the core collapse and taken very low with those Helios. Can't quite get the kill there, but it will force that roam back, and the Arden now needs to be very cautious as he approaches this next fight. Does have the Echo going up in 2 seconds as well, so if G2 do start this, I expect to see a contest from SpaceStation Gaming. Joker in from the side, looking for the engage. If he can catch out a member of G2, maybe he can do something, but already it's down low, and that is the back and going out for G2. SpaceStation Gaming unable to react in time to stop the Kraken push from G2.
Yeah, now while pushing in this wave and while Hundor is able to just barrage Heliogenesis down, it's going to make it very easy for them to get an effective push. However, they still have to be careful. We see it time and time again. Teams will get too aggressive, and that will cause them to lose out on what could be a game-ending push. Sneaky is going to go ahead and recall now and pick up an infusion. He has 3 items online. He has a lot of damage.
Hundor's in the midst of that, but Arcane Passion gets him out. There is the core collapse as well, but Hundor's still in the middle of this team. Great damage onto Class. Here comes the second Gauntlet with the Echo. Hundor somehow dodging his way around for now, but is he going to fall? He does. He's the first to go down, and now Dark Potato and Keanu realize they cannot really do too much more. Dark Potato killed. Keanu's going to run away. The Kraken will take out the turret in that choke point, but great fight from SpaceStation Gaming as they engaged on towards G2.
Yeah, that fight would have been over much quicker, but Sneaky used his roadie run into the Arcane Passage to get closer to the enemies. Meanwhile, Dark Potato had just wound up a Fearsome Shade, and it did force Sneaky out of the fight. It was not blocked. It forced him all the way up to the top wall in the lane there, and unfortunately, Hundor was not able to find the damage onto the Joker, who was bouncing around that fight, getting barrier from Clast, and they were able to finally find an actual convincing fight. They found Hundor earlier, but I mean, this game, there's been a lot of pressure, but there has not been really anybody able to find a kill because of the escape potential of the Saw. He does take a lot of damage up front, but he has a way to get out. And you know, right now we're at an 18-minute 4-kill game, and 3 of those kills just happened.
That they did, but it's not all about getting kills in this game. It's about poke if you're G2, just harass down your opponents, and if you're SpaceStation Gaming, it's about all-inning and catching out Hundor. They've done it twice thus far. They just need to do it a couple more times, and they can look for those pushes. But at the moment, they are down yet to take a turret. They are still behind in terms of gold, almost 4,000 in the hole. G2 have shown us that they are consistently one of the best teams in Europe. SpaceStation Gaming have looked good over the last week or so, but not as consistent as the G2 army.
Yeah, and you definitely expect that SK is watching this game right now, biting their nails, hoping that SpaceStation Gaming is able to pull this one off. If they're able to shut down the points for G2, then SK would be very comfortably ahead and only need to pick up a win for the rest of the day, secure their spot. So SK really relying on that one right now. It is Keanu Nakoa taking a lot of damage from Arcane Passage out.
That's the safety of the Lyra. It does mean it's 40 seconds until that's back up, so SpaceStation Gaming might look to take a fight. Here we go, there's the gauntlet. Look for Hundo if they can get onto that backline. The reflex box come out. Is there an echo? It is, and they're looking for that jump back in. The kill already goes in. That's a Saw Shank redemption as they get on towards Dark Potato, but here goes Hundo trying to turn it back around. Does have those Helios. Second gauntlet was used. Sneaky with the suppressing fire. Is going to take a lot of damage with the core collapse. Here comes another Shank. Onto the back of Keanu. Not enough. Class now trying to run away from Hundo, who is on the aggressive warpath because he's got Solar Storm up in just a second. Now it's back. There's the suppressing fire once again. There's the Solar Storm. Hits Sneaky. He's so low and he cannot escape. This is great from Keanu as he rains down the stars on the Joker, but now he's got no energy and the Joker is laughing all the way to the bank. He cleans up the kills. He gets the ace for SpaceStation Gaming and they win the fight in the jungle.
Absolutely they do, but unfortunately this Blackfeather not going to be able to solo out the Kraken. He is going to come push off the wave and get one turret, but that's a 20-minute first turret. SpaceStation Gaming has been able to find the last fight and a half, but they lost out on Sneaky in Class 2, which really takes away anything they really gained off of that push. Fortunately, they were able to kill Hundor, otherwise that would have been absolutely devastating, as Hundor would have easily been able to push in the base. And now it's just us looking for the next fight. The Kraken is on the board, but this is still realistically anybody's game. Sneaky actually healed up a massive amount in that last fight on a Shank onto Keanu Nakoa.
That he did, that Eve doing so much work. Class will clear out the vision around the Kraken, and next fight is going to be incredibly even between these two teams. Fusion's picked up across the board, only Class missing one at the moment. Does have the Echo up in 12 seconds as well. Remember that Keanu didn't really have Arcane Passage in that last fight to start it off, so now with all the ultimates up, we'll have to see if the fight plays out a little bit differently. Completed build on Hundor. Completed build basically on Dark Potato as well, just missing that final piercing shard upgrade into the Broken Myth, you'd assume. The Joker is all the way to 3 items as well. This is all on this next fight. Hundor is engaged upon. There's the Bright Bulwark. Dark Potato trying to pop down the Fearsome Shade as they try and run away from this, but Hundor is still the target. The chase in. The Gauntlet blocked out. Dark Potato is low. Imperial Citra heals him up. Here comes the Solar Storm across the midst of the team. The suppressing fire. That's one down. And G2 now need to realize that they are a member down, a member short of the manpower of SpaceStation Gaming. These out of this world plays from SSG looking good. Try and find a way to dodge around these Helios, but still the stars rain down amongst them, and astronauts are not used to playing amongst the stars, but they are used to trying to get onto Hundor. The core collapse comes down. Here's the Crystal Sentry to join the fight. Another Solar Storm is going to land. The kill onto Class will fall, and now it's all on Hundor trying to dodge away. A great core collapse. Sneaky's dead as well. Doesn't quite get the kill. It's an ace for G2 as Hundor and Keanu make an amazing play, and the stars fell straight onto SpaceStation Gaming's faces.
Yeah, they did, and I think that's just going to be G2 pushing in and ending the game. There's 30 seconds on Class and the Joker. They have a double ace wave, or the remains of a double ace wave, pushing in the base, and we've seen the damage that Hundor is able to do onto objectives. I mean, 5 Helios is an entire turret, and he has them up every single second. That's the game going over to G2. They take one up over SpaceStation Gaming, and they are still very much in the running for that world spot. And if they are able to take this game here, this next game, they'll be going up against SK in the finals. And that's where we're going to be able to try to deny SK getting further points.
Someone to carry. Hundor always steps up to the plate. Great play from Keanu and Dark Potato as well. We're going to hand it over to our analyst to break down the game. And Irakizora, I'm sorry, but CP Sword just didn't quite work out. the analyst.
Thank you very much, guys. Yeah, we are back on the desk. You know what? Even though CP Saw didn't win the game, I am fully converted at this point. Over 1,000 damage with
I know, right?
It's terrifying.
Thousands of damage coming up from those dank shanks, and he did pick up the aftershock. Such a strong item in 2.9 on top of the execution damage that Saw packs with his regular base damage with the shanks and his ultimate as well. The pick finally came through, and it actually did incredibly well throughout the mid-game once he picked up his Shadow Glass especially, but unfortunately it did not manage to win the game for them.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the fact that that matchup against Celeste is not an easy matchup for the Saw. CP or weapon power, that's still the case, and we saw later on in the game, Hundo was able to dodge around the fights. Although that last fight was not a simple fight for them. Let's jump on into our replay.
I mean, not many of these fights were very simple off the forefront, but I mean, it started off G2 able to put pressure on the Saw and take that turret and then just continue to shove in this lane. It's one of the downsides of the CP Saw, or at least this build in particular that Saw went for, was he didn't have as much wave clear as you would normally see from most laners.
Yeah, I actually don't agree with the build. Aftershock first and maxing his shanks instead of his suppression fire doesn't give you enough wave clear, like you mentioned, Tasty Bacon, to hold those turrets. Instead, I think he would have done better with something like a Shadow Glass so that he's able to use also his range with the suppression fire when Blackfeather goes in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, our next replay is when SpaceStation were actually defending against a push from G2 and managed to grab themselves a double kill.
Yeah, this was later on in the game after G2 had managed to get a small lead, but now Shadow Glass is picked up on the Saw, and once he closed the gap, the execution damage that comes out from that ultimate, and then the Dank Shot dealing 900 damage, over 900 damage. What I'm talking about with the execution damage, by the way, with all the health changes in 2.9, every hero has more health now, significantly more health. Saw's damage is based on health percentage, so it does a percentage of the opponent or the target's health, and that's why his execution damage is so high now.
Yeah, it's 12% of their health, and there's also a crystal ratio on the splash damage of the ultimate, which is why with that Shadow Glass, in that fight in particular, especially when everyone was grouped up, every single attack he was doing was dishing out a ton of damage.
Yeah, and then the next fight as well, SpaceStation managed to win for themselves. This was an ace that they got a few more minutes into the game.
And this is when those shanks start to... This is really when people that were skeptical start to become a believer, because you run in and you do over 1,000 damage. We didn't get to see the first kill on this replay on Dark Potato where you killed him and just completely deleted the Batiste off the map, but able to just stay alive so long, so close, the Bulwark finding a kill for G2, and then from this point, it's a pretty easy 1v1 for a Blackfeather versus a Lyra, and this was when we were like, okay, maybe the SpaceStation Gaming is going to turn this around, they're going to take this game, because that Saw was online and was just really scary.
Absolutely. Now, our final replay of the game was obviously G2 managed to win out that final fight, and it was an incredibly close one as well. Sneaky almost finished off Hundo with his final suppression
Yeah, he
fire.
almost managed to finish it. So first, Sneaky picked up the kill on the Batiste with the suppression fire, but then they waited for the cooldown, and Saw got into a nice position to hit it onto the Celeste over the wall, allowing Blackfeather to go in, but they were too low, and at this point, Saw is too far away to follow up, even though he does have his shank to get closer. Celeste does a lot of damage, and with her AoE splashing both on Blackfeather and Arden, she was able to heal enough to get the kills on both of them, and then at the end, the Saw teleporting through the portal and landing his suppression fire accidentally, but it wasn't enough because Lyra and the Crystal Sentry at that point was helping a lot as well.
Absolutely, and the stun on Sneaky was absolutely clutch. That was what won the fight for G2. Let's take a look at the damage done during that game as G2 are going to secure it. Honestly, Sneaky's damage actually very low. In fact, lower than the Joker. The Joker was the one actually dealing out the damage.
Yeah, well, the CP Saw doesn't do consistent damage. That's the issue.
Yeah.
It's all about that heavy burst. When you do get that burst, it does a massive amount of work, but you can only get that burst so many times in a fight. So, you know, the damage numbers, again, they don't always tell the full story, but here you can see Hundor absolutely putting in work on this Celeste. It's why it's one of his core picks. It's one of the two heroes that we know him for the most are the Baron and the Celeste.
And it's also the early game and mid game that went so well for G2 that helped them win the game and got them those damage numbers as well. They actually played it incredibly well, picked up the Shadow Glasses and then Clockwork second on both Batiste and Celeste, and that item just reduces your cooldown by so much now with the new passive as well. Well done to G2, getting up 1-0.
Yeah, and this is an incredibly important series for G2 as well. If they want to keep in the running for the World Championship, they've got to get into that final against SK Gaming. Now, we need to get into game number 2 of this series, so let's start to talk a little bit about the draft, gentlemen. We are going to be jumping on in. Do SpaceStation focus this sort again? Do G2 have to react to this sort pick? Is that even going to affect the draft here?
I don't think it's going to affect the draft because it was a last pick for SpaceStation. I would expect them to do the same thing if they really wanted to go for it. It would be very late in the draft, so you can't sit there and try and draft around this saw because it's likely not even to come out again. So it's one of those situations that you just have to think of it as an anomaly and just move on and stay focused on what your normal draft strategy would be.
As well with this Black Feather first pick for G2, it can do really well against the Saw. So SpaceStation, if they go for it, it can be very risky. But the Black Feather, very strong weapon power, carry both in the jungle and in lane. We saw it last game in the jungle, and it can also be played CP.
SpaceStation going to get their Kestrel, and those are the two picks that we always talk about. When we talk SpaceStation, it's Black Feather and Kestrel. Obviously, G2 are aware of that, so they deny at least one of those two. A SpaceStation going to still be happy to get the Kestrel into their hands. Could see the Arden come out again because it is one of those picks that they have put a lot of priority on for class. Lyra still available as well, though, which is I'm a little bit intrigued by the fact that G2 left the Lyra open while banning the Catherine after the Grace ban had already come through.
Yeah, and at this point, G2 will most likely try to pick up Arden here as the best left captain hero if they're trying to go for something more standard. As far as CP hero, I mean, they're still going to need to decide where to put the Black Feather, in the lane or in the jungle. And then after that, they will most likely decide to pick up something CP in the jungle. I think Black Feather in lane would do better for them against the Kestrel.
The only other thing I could see them potentially doing is try and go for that Celeste again, but it would be a little risky, I feel. And I like the Black Feather in the lane. I think it's one of the picks that Hundor has started to play a little bit, has really shown some strong promise on. Not quite the level of his Baron and Celeste, but it is definitely up there.
Baron would actually do incredibly well here if they put the CP Black Feather in the jungle and then pick up the Baron
into a Lyra, though.
They would be able to do so well just because the SpaceStation composition with the Kestrel and Lyra doesn't die. Regardless, they go for the Fortress, and that's going to be a CP jungle Fortress with the Black Feather lane. Very strong composition. Again, CP Fortress works really well against Kestrel because not only do your wolves block her damage with the Glimmer shots, if she goes invisible, your wolves do follow her around, so you're able to keep track of her. And with Black Feather auto-attacking with many different abilities, including his ultimate, he can apply the mortal wounds easily.
I like the alpha pick to come out for SpaceStation. Something that can work on the backlines, can kite a little bit as well, which we've seen. Not so much kiting herself, but allowing the rest of the team to kite by using the prime directives to slow up targets that are trying to dive. So I like the pick there. This is all about trying to keep Sneaky safe with this Kestrel. It's a composition that we've seen SpaceStation run. They ran this exact composition yesterday and were able to have some pretty great success with it.
I have to ask, looking at this composition, this feels kind of Cloud9-esque almost with the CP Fortress. How are we going to expect this one to be playing out? Because, previously it was like build the Storm Crown and all that kind of stuff first, and it slowed it down. Are we expecting this to be an aggressive pick?
Not really. You need to scale with it to be very effective. You want to pick up a Storm Crown so that your jungle clears somewhat fast, but you have to wait for your levels, you have to wait for your items. Most importantly, the levels. The levels is what give Fortress a strong power spikes with level 6, giving him his ultimate, and later on his damage scales better. So it's about scaling and then fighting around the ultimate from Fortress.
We'll see if they're going to be able to bring that one. And obviously going up into that Alpha, do we feel like Alpha has a strong matchup against the Fortress?
Early on in the jungle, when it comes to farming, absolutely. We saw yesterday in a matchup of Fortress versus Alpha, it was Von C just dominating the jungle, but they weren't able to turn it into a win because of that later game scaling that the Fortress is able to bring to the table and the utility that he provides to the rest of his team. So the early game should definitely go in favor of the Alpha, but once we get a little bit later onto the game, things start to become a little bit more murky.
I want to talk a little bit about the lane matchup as well before we jump into this game. Obviously, not only have we got Sneaky against Hundo, we also have Blackfeather against Kestrel,
Yeah.
the two premium laners right now. How does this matchup pan out?
I mean, that's another matchup that goes in the favor of the Kestrel, where she has a stronger early and mid game until Blackfeather picks up his level 6, then it changes. So it's on G2 to play aggressive.
All right, so it's all about getting those power spikes and using them correctly. Hashtag Vainglory8. Let us know whether you think G2 can finish out this series or if you think SpaceStation are going to come back into this one. It's time to pass it over to our casters and get into Game 2 of semi-final number 2.
Thank you very much, Munch. I am Medic. I'm joined by Denominate, and G2 are looking to take this 2-0 and get through to the finals. Strong jungle picks from both teams here. You've got the Fortress and you've got the Alpha. And I think a lot of this game might be decided on who gets that early advantage in the jungle.
It's going to be difficult. Dark Potato definitely can use this dragon blood that he has in his pocket to try to get a little bit of an advantage. But the real kind of win scenario here for the side of G2 is dive onto Sneaky and just blow him up, because at that point it's going to be too difficult for the Joker to carry a 2v3 fight. They're really relying heavily on Sneaky's glimmer shots to be able to come out on top here. And if they're able to take Sneaky out quickly, it's going to be G2 consistently pushing for the win. Now, alternatively, if Sneaky is able to burst down Dark Potato, who's going to be looking to dive that back line, and the carry Fortress is not all that tanky, you know, it's not a captain build he's going to be going, it is very easy for those glimmers to bring down Dark Potato. The downfall to this is the triple melee composition that G2 has together. The glimmer shots with 3 players diving directly onto you are very difficult to hit consistently on one target. And that's where the Joker comes in with the AoE damage that he can do with both his Prime Directive and his Core Charge if the enemies are close enough.
With 2 people in the lane, as you'd expect, Hundo and Keanu just joining up forces for the time being. It is going to be Dark Potato, as we expected, farming up that jungle as well. Would have been odd to see a lane Fortress. Don't think I've ever actually seen a lane Fortress in competitive play, but Sneaky's doing a good job with the glimmers here to force Hundo back. Is arranged into melee matchup, but as Irakizo said on the desk, the Blackfeather into Kestra, there's an okay matchup for the Blackfeather, assuming he can farm up early on and get some extra damage underneath his belt, because you can always just dive onto that Kestrel pretty effectively. Looks like SpaceStation Gaming are going to try a little invade here before that Crystal Sentry spawns, but luckily for G2 and for Dark Potato, he's already farmed up his entire jungle, so they're not going to be able to get anything out of that.
Yeah, we have actually seen the lane Fortress once or twice. It was specifically used at a time to counter the CP lane Sky when that was a strong pick. So it wasn't often. It wasn't often, but we have seen it before with success. So it's not going to happen this time. Dark Potato going to go ahead and be on that Fortress. And again, they're just looking to get raw burst damage and prevent Sneaky from, you know, being able to do anything. And it works well into the Lyra as well. So you might look at Lyra and say, you know, hey, the Bright Bulwark is very good at preventing this kind of engage, but the Bright Bulwark is also on a sizable cooldown. So if they're able to fight around that cooldown, they definitely could have an advantage, as Joker is looking to steal away some CS here early on.
Yep, and does manage to take away one of those backs as well. Dark Potato will start up the Treant, try to use that route to catch Joker out, but they can still look for the steal here. Damage onto Dark Potato. They get the Treant as well. That goes over to Joker, so good steals from SpaceStation Gaming as they invade the jungle of G2, but it's not the end of the world for G2. They're about 1,000 gold behind early on. It's more around the 800 mark, actually, but still do have the ability to win out the later portion of this game.
I think Joker might have actually got both of the backs. I think he got the first one with the Prime Directive onto Dark Potato, and now he's looking for more aggression. And it's very difficult for Fortress to push in Alpha with the point in the game that we're at. He's able to trade out so much better. I mean, look at the burst damage coming out of that Prime Directive when the Joker has those 3 stacks of the Core Overload. Able to, again, make short work of this squishy Fortress. They are going to have to be careful now, though, as the Crystal Sentry is coming down.
Keanu has been caught out a little bit though. Dark Potato down to sub 200 HP. Regen's a little bit with the healing flask. The Crystal Sentry trying to do some work, but the Joker really unperturbed by this. That Treant is quite low as well. Hundors comes in, takes it away from the Joker, and now the Crystal Sentry joining in this fight. Joker has that infinite reboot, but needs to try and get away. He's going to drop into that heroic perk. Crystal Sentry will eventually fall, but he's dead as well. First blood over to G2. That goes to Hundor, and the Crystal Sentry goes to Class.
It's a good start for both teams, you know, respectively at least. The Joker did fall, but they maintain a gold lead at this point. Dark Potato is very low, but going to go ahead and recall and top his health up a little bit. And then likely just going to look to get another Treant out of his jungle to top himself off further. And it is Hundor recalling as well. 2,000 gold in his pocket. He goes back, he buys the Serpent's Mask, and it looks like he upgraded his armor as well. Again, trying to reduce the damage that Sneaky is going to be able to output is really the key here, because if he doesn't have any armor and he dives onto Sneaky, those Glimmer Shots will blow him up very, very quickly. So smart purchase by Hundor, looking for that sustain where he can, you know, stay in that backline, as well as now level 6 he has the Rose offensive, so if he feels he's getting baited into an active camo, he can Rose offensive through and avoid that stun, but now he very likely getting this turret for free.
How it does fall. Dark Potato and Keanu were trying to deal with the Joker in the backline, who has jumped back in with that Prime Directive, already level 7 as well. Stealing these camps doesn't only give you the gold, of course, gives you that extra experience, and it means that you're hitting these spikes in terms of levels just a slightly bit quicker. Dark Potato's going to pop the attack of the pack as that Crystal Sentry joins in the fight, but G2 very much on the back foot here. 2,000 gold down. They lose their second Crystal Sentry, only 6 minutes, and the turret's down as well. They didn't have a fountain for that fight, which is so instrumental. And such good play from SpaceStation Gaming to continually deny G2 any objectives in their own jungle.
They're doing a good job. This is a team that in the last couple weeks has had really good performances. And although G2 was able to close out game number 1, this game is looking very even as well moving forward. And Keanu Nakoa on this Arden, this is one of my favorite picks for him actually. So I think G2 does have what it takes to, you know, get past the fact that, you know, obviously there's more pushing power on the side of SpaceStation Gaming. And, you know, that's what we see is every time Sneaky is allowed to get onto a turret, they're able to take it down very quickly. And because of the invades coming out of the Joker, it's made it difficult for Dark Potato and Keanu Nakoa to roam up into the lane and get some of that support that the Black Feather needs. But as the game goes on, these things are going to start to shift. You know, Dark Potato is getting ready to have his Aftershock online soon. It is a gold payout going to SpaceStation Gaming. But once Dark Potato gets the Aftershock online and starts to build into some defense, that's likely where we'll see G2 really start to ramp up their aggression and should be able to find the kills onto Sneaky.
I love this from SpaceStation Gaming though, because there's always this thought that you get ahead in the early game and then you kind of stagnate on your lead a little bit. You don't continually push the tempo, you don't continually push the pace, but that's not what they're doing. They're saying, we'll push forward, we'll get these gold mines, we'll get these Elder Treants as well, and they're continually forcing G2 to react and have to get these extra players, spend their money on trying to catch out SpaceStation Gaming in their own jungle, and they're not even getting that much money. G2 is so far behind. Look at Dark Potato. He's at 28 CS, and the Joker's at 50. That's such a monumental lead for SpaceStation Gaming at this point. It's almost 4,000 gold, and we're only 8 minutes in. That's incredible. They cleared out the Crystal Sentries. No sentries left for G2. This is great stuff from SpaceStation Gaming.
Yeah, it definitely is. This is a team that has the potential to shut down G2 here, but here's the gauntlet.
Yeah, G2 feeling they have to make a play, they have to do something proactive. They're trying to get onto that backline, but Sneaky dodges away with the arcane passage into the midst of G2. He almost falls, but somehow he manages to get away. He eventually does go down, and now Hundor is going to get this damage down back on towards the Joker. He gets a kill though, and the Joker goes into the infinite reboot, and now it's Dark Potato and Keanu, the underfed members of G2. They haven't had their jungle, they haven't had the gold, and the Joker can chase in with his Prime Directive, looking for Dark Potato. He'll be able to take him out, even though Dark Potato got the Treant, doesn't get the healing. SpaceStation Gaming take a 2-for-1 trade.
They are looking good right now as they've been pushing their advantage while they have it. There's not a massive amount of armor acquired yet by G2, so Sneaky's able to have a huge influence in these fights. And now that the Joker has picked up a Dragon's Eye, he's going to start to scale up his damage pretty heavily as well. And when you pair that up with the sustain that Lyra is going to give additionally to Alpha, who's already sustaining, it does make the Joker a huge threat. We saw the amount of damage scaling up that he can do just with the 3 charges of that core overload and using the prime directive. And now, as these fights go through, he's going to have that kind of ramping up damage with the charges of the core overload, as well as each additional stack of the Dragon's Eye is going to provide him additional crystal power, 20 per stack up to 9. That's an additional 180 crystal power on top of the 85 that the item gives you as a base. And now they're starting up the gold mine, and G2, I don't know if they're even going to rotate down. I think they just want the turret.
Looking for it at the moment. Bright Ball, what comes out? Keanu already almost dead. Prime Direct is going to be used as the attack of the pack, but Keanu is dead. Hundle jumps onto Sneaky. They get a lot of damage down, but the active camo used. Hundle jumps back in with the Rose offensive. They eventually get the kill, but they trade it 2 for 1. No damage on that turret at all, and Dark Potato running for the Wolves. Running away from the Wolves that are the SpaceStation Gaming squad. Joker with the chase core charge in. Still has that prime directive, doesn't quite connect. Another core charge onto Dark Potato. The Imperial Sigil healing him up. It's an ace for SpaceStation Gaming. It's delayed though, because Keanu is back up, so they don't get the ace buff, although they got all 3 kills.
Yeah, definitely SpaceStation Gaming looking to even this one up 1-1 as the Joker takes some more jungle CS out of Dark Potato's jungle while he is down. They see Hundor rotating though. They're just going to give up that 1 CS, but I mean the lead is substantial for the Joker right now. 72-33 of Dark Potato, and then looking at Sneaky, he has a lead 112-98 of Hundor. This is SpaceStation Gaming, not the team that we saw in game number 1. They've really stepped up their draft this time around, and they can compete when they get on a comfortable, even draft. And now they're starting up the gold mine again here, but I don't even know if Keanu Nakoa can attempt to make a steal here, as it would almost certainly be his death.
And it would. Another gold miner going across 7,000 gold, as you said, to SpaceStation Gaming. There's even an Echo finished on class. Let's just look at that itemization. Sneaky, Solar Blade, Tyrant's Monocle, and a Minion's Foot sitting in his back pocket. We do have a pause coming out, but I'm sure we'll get this rectified as soon as possible. I think one of the good things to do when there's a big gold disparity is to look at the difference in the roamers items, because that's where a lot of that sort of extra gold from turrets and stuff can go to. So you've got a Fountain, War Treads, and an Echo already on class, whereas Keanu's only sitting on level 2 boots, those travel boots, and the Fountain. He's almost an entire item and a half behind his opposing roam, which means there's just so much more gold on SpaceStation Gaming than there is on G2 at this moment.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm not 100% sure who has got the pause here. It might be Hundor. He was looking like he might be lagging a little bit. But, obviously we want to give you guys the most exciting matchup we can. Nobody wants to see somebody steamroll while somebody is unable to connect to the game. So, we'll get in here shortly. Players are responsible for their own connection. But, again, we want to give them the best chance we can. So with SpaceStation Gaming being as far ahead as they are right now, it is going to be very difficult, Medic, for them to actually, not win this game. I mean, as long as they keep the pressure up, as long as they continue to keep Dark Potato down in the depths where he is right now. I mean, we're almost 12 minutes into this game, and he has a single Tier 3 complete, whereas the Joker almost has enough gold to complete his 3rd if he goes into the Atlas Pauldron to try to slow up Hundor's attack speed. Hundor does have a metal jacket of his own trying to reduce the damage from Sneaky, but, I mean, again, the Joker has been such a huge threat with the AoE damage that he provides.
He has, and just so we can update everyone, there's a device issue. We're just getting a restart in before we can get back into the game, so it shouldn't be too long, hopefully. Well, obviously, as we said, we want the players to be on the best connection and playing to the best of their abilities, so any device issues need to be sorted out. And that's what I've liked from SpaceStation Gaming here, by the way, as well, is their ability to continually push that foot on the accelerator. They're going through the gears. First gear was those early invades. Second gear, they continue to push, and then they hit third gears. They got the gold miners. Now we're moving 4th and 5th, and they're just continually aggress into the jungle of G2, and G2 don't really seem to have a way to react. Like, they tried to force that fight around the gold miner, they lost out on the fight, losing all their members, and then they lost a delayed ace later on as well. So SpaceStation Gaming looking so strong in this, and I'm sure SK will be sitting watching this series, watching this game, saying, yeah, this is what we want to see. We want to be able to take first spot this week, or even just get to the finals when G2 don't, and then be able to get those extra points, getting us towards that world spot.
Yeah, and SpaceStation Gaming with a 7,000 gold lead right now. They are definitely feeling comfortably in the lead. And again, denying points from G2 right now, as you mentioned, that is what SK is sitting back hoping goes on, because that's going to help them get their world spot confirmed. Joker, like I mentioned, should go for the Atlas Pauldron next item to slow down any attacks coming out of Hundor, and he's just done that as well. So the nice kind of delivery system that Alpha provides, we see it on heroes like Taka or Kashka, heroes that you can really wind up that Atlas Pauldron before you go into a fight and use your gap closer, because if you time it correctly, that makes an Atlas very difficult to block off, is when you're in and already on somebody. If Alpha's on Blackfeather using the core charge, Hundor is going to know to look out for that. He's going to know 100% to be prepared. Okay, look for that little yellow swirl, and he can use the Rose offensive to get away from it, or obviously once he gets a reflex block, he can do that, as well as he's building towards an Aegis right now. But it's a little different when someone literally lands on you and the Atlas Pauldron goes off. So that's what we're going to be looking to see out of the Joker, is whatever he needs to do to get into Hundor, and that's going to provide Sneaky a lot of additional sustain in the fights as well, because it's going to cancel out some of Hundor's attacks. He's not going to be able to attack quite as fast, as well as that results in him not building up Breaking Point the way he's hoping to do so.
Definitely a wise choice of itemization from SpaceStation Gaming. Keanu has finished his war treads now, so if they can find a pick, if they can find that one engage they need, maybe, just maybe, there's a chance for G2. You can never count them out. They've been so consistent throughout the split, only really playing second fiddle to SK because SK have looked so strong. Hundor will get some poke off on towards Sneaky, but it's such a hard catch to make. Double Tyrant's finished. Here comes the engage. Great bulwark. The disengage happening. There's the active camo as well, and Tyrus is on that backline. Rose offensive forward. The stealth is blocked out that active camo, but they've already killed Sneaky, and all members of G2 are still alive. This is the fight they wanted. They get the engage back on towards that Alpha as he pops the Termination Protocol. Infinite Reboot goes down, and G2 are trying to take him out before he can come back up, but he does manage to survive. Keanu just about gets out alive as well. G2 might even get the ace here. The chase onto Class. No Rose offensive for Hundor, but he doesn't need it, and G2 get the ace. A clean ace. 7,000 gold behind, and somehow they come out on top.
Somehow they find a way to get that fight. They kill Sneaky very early on. A Faint of Heart is actually going to get Hundor out of that one-shot, one kill. They not only get the bounty gold back from that fight, they take down the first turret, and now they're turning their attention on the gold mine. That 7,000 lead that was just a minute ago for SpaceStation Gaming. When G2 secures this, that's going to lower that gold lead so substantially. I mean, we're sitting at 3,500 now. They've just cut that lead in half.
I just can't believe that fight went as well as it did for E2. Like I was saying just a moment before, you can't count them out, but mentally, I was done with this game. I thought it was over. I thought SpaceStation Gaming had it, and we even said it before the pause came out. SpaceStation Gaming should have this game in the bag, but great stuff from G2 to be able to close it out. They are still behind. SpaceStation Gaming do still have, Joker with Dragon's Eye and the Aftershock and the Atlas finish. You've got Sneaky on double Tyrants and a Sorrow Blade. You have these big power spikes, but it's difficult for them now because they know that they can lose team fights. They're no longer as immortal as they were just a moment ago.
I absolutely agree with you on that one. I do think they still have the potential to go ahead and close out this game as far as SSG goes, but it is going to require them playing correctly. When you get sloppy against a team like G2, Hundor is a absolutely amazing player, one of the best in Europe. I'd be willing to put that one up there, and if you allow him any inch, he's going to capitalize on it. And here we go, Joker is in.
Right, Bulwark out, Prime Directive already used by Joker, looking for the re-engage on towards that backline. Class solo, the stun onto Sneaky as he jumps back in. There's the gauntlet. Keanu's quite low, but here is the damage onto Sneaky, and already he's dead. The Fountain too little, too late from Class, and perhaps that is the game-defining moment for G2 as they get the infinite reboot out of the Alpha as well. Can't quite take him down before he respawns. It's all on Alpha. He doesn't have the damage, and now Class is the only one left alive. Arcane Passages away, but the chase in from G2 is great, and they get the ace once again. No one dies, and G2 are godlike.
G2 have found 2 amazing back-to-back fights. They're going to find an additional turret with the ace wave pushing up underneath this one. They'll be able to take the Kraken, and they'll be looking for a healthy push here, looking into the near future. The turret actually might not fall as Sneaky is coming back into the lane, but that's a lot of damage down onto that objective for the fact that nobody was there pushing with it. And so that's going to make that objective easier to take down for them as they come into the lane. The one downfall of this push is that Hundor did not come up into the lane and take that turret himself. That's now going to be an additional damage percent that the turret is going to do to this Kraken. And K-Last actually did use his Bright Bulwark there, but should be up in a couple seconds. He has the Echo online, so we'll have to see what he decides to Echo, that Bright Bulwark or an Imperial Sigil.
Look at that damage onto Joker, though. Even with the Imperial Sigil, he's down to half. That Kraken will take the turret in just one more hit. Jump in from Dark Potato. The damage on towards that Alpha is absolutely devastating. Termination Protocol into the Prime Directive, jumps onto the backline. Dark Potato still alive, and the Joker goes into the Infinite Reboot. A great gauntlet will separate the team. He comes back up. The Joker trying to do what he can in the midst of this team, but he will be the first to fall. Arcane Passage away by Class, but G2 are on the offensive. They are not giving an inch. They are not giving a mile. They are taking this game by the scruff of its neck, and G2 close out 2 kills. They'll take on this choke point turret as well. With the Kraken, they can continue to push in. 20 seconds on the Joker, 20 seconds on Class as well. It's all on Sneaky to do what he can against this Kraken, but I think G2 will at least get 1 crystal turret. I don't think they'll be able to take the game off this, but maybe they can because they're going all in on towards Sneaky. They get the ace. 7 seconds on the Joker, coming back up. G2 with such a turnaround. They've evened out the goal. They're going to take the 2nd crystal turret, and they're going to take the game of SpaceStation Gaming here. What an incredibly impressive performance by them, and SK will be shaking in their boots looking at this G2 lineup going into the finals right up after this series.
Yeah, like I said, once the armor gets built by Hundor, Dark Potato, and Kianakoa, it's so difficult for Sneaky to focus onto a single target with those glimmer shots. G2 find 2 amazing fights and then finish it off with the 3rd, finding an ace and finding themselves in the final against SK. And this matchup really could be determining who is able to make it to Worlds, as, again, 4 points difference for these 2 teams right now, G2 and SK. Whoever wins the next matchup will get 2, and the loser a maximum of 1. So, I mean, could help close the gap for G2.
Gonna hand it back across towards the analyst to break down all the possible scenarios, but what a series from G2. Great performance by them. Munch, take it away.
Fantastic stuff from G2. They are going to win this one in the end 2-0 against SpaceStation Gaming. Although, has to be said, SpaceStation, they put up a good fight. They did definitely hold their own, but G2, the better team on the day. 2-0 scoreline. G2 are going to be feeling comfortable now.
Yeah, they looked very, very strong. In the early game for this one, it wasn't quite as clean, but you expected G2 to fall behind a little bit in the early